Welcome back to Cinema D'Amore. I'm your host, Justin Morgan. I'm here with
Chuck.
And it's Cyberpunk month again. Still. It's Cyberpunk month still.
Like the third time we've done it.
The third time that we've done Cyberpunk. Ever? Like the genre?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not keeping track.
At least 3 times. This is at least the third time that we've done it. Because I can think of 2 other movies. And one of them was last week. And one of them was Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, at a minimum.
We are talking about Strange Days, directed by Kathryn Bigelow, written by James Cameron and Jay Cox. I guess this is the love of James Cameron and Kathryn Bigelow. I don't know how else to describe the movie besides it's a cyberpunk movie. I was worried that it maybe wasn't as cyberpunk as I remembered it.
It's pretty cyberpunk.
It's on par with Akira. It really is. It's just a little bit farther, not as far in the future as Akira, but it's also not too technologically advanced. Tone and everything. The fucking rave has the aesthetic.
Yeah.
Just a lot of angry people, corrupt cops.
Vincent D'Onofrio. It's got all those cyberpunk items.
Yeah. Tom Sizemore.
Yeah, Tom Sizemore in a terrible wig for 2.5 hours. The most obviously terrible wig that you'll ever see in your life. It's so bad.
In defense of the wig, I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be a wig.
I know. I mean, the wig's a plot point.
Yeah.
We'll say that, but it still maybe could have been a better one. But that's almost your tip-off that it is a wig, because we see numerous times characters putting on the wigs, and they always look terrible. Like when Lenny gives that one guy, he's like, look, you're just going to have to bang these 2 girls. You think they'll notice? No, they won't notice at all. And he puts that just awful wig on top of his actual hair, and he's just like, you look fine.
Yeah, if you haven't watched the movie, watch the movie. Watch the movie before you listen to this and then come back and listen to it. What Chuck's talking about is fairly early on in the movie where they're describing this technology squib. It's supposed to be a body camera for police officers, but you can feel what they feel and see what they see. And very early on, the main character, Lenny, played by Ray Fiennes, he's like a dealer of these memories. So he describes how you have to wear this apparatus on your head, and the only way to disguise it is with the wig. Most people have a wig. And the first guy that he puts the thing on his head and he puts the wig on, it doesn't even look like the same hair. And he's like, it's perfect, man. It's perfect.
This guy's got like Kenny G hair to begin with, and then he puts like a like straight hair wig over top of it, and he's just like, yeah, man, looks good. They'll never notice.
I don't think they did. But drugs might have been a part of that, too.
The movie takes place in the far distant future of 1999. We've only passed it a little bit by now.
Yeah, the movie is closer to 1999 than we are now.
Yeah. Although, and this is another thing that I do think is very common. We were trying to talk about during Akira how cyberpunk seems very hard to define and could have a lot of different elements. But I do feel like any type of virtual reality, that almost always fits into cyberpunk no matter what. Like if you have anything that's like a VR type thing, it almost automatically is like, oh, that's cyberpunk or something like that, which this film features extensively. This is really predicting the idea, too, that pretty much what everyone says about any VR headset release is, yeah, but like, how am I going to be able to use it to watch porn? That's everyone's thing with the new Apple Vision Pro, and they're like, right, but like I can run porn on it, right? Blasted right into my eyeballs.
Lenny, you sell porn. I got some very sophisticated customers. Yeah. I mean, we do see a guy that has no legs, and he uses the technology to run on the beach.
To be a guy with legs.
He also checks out a girl on the beach, so I don't know what fantasy that is.
It does really seem like the 2 markets for this thing are porn or committing crimes. Those are like your 2 options of what you want it to be. I think when he's talking to the one business guy in the club, he's describing that you could do anything, you could be like climbing Mount Everest or something like that. But it's like, but let's be honest, you want to know what it's like to be in the body of an 18-year-old girl, don't you?
Yeah, that's a good moment, too, where he hooks him up in the bar. Everything is extremely gritty and dirty. Way over.
Very moist.
It's an over-the-top world, but doesn't seem that unrealistic.
It's almost just a very exaggerated version of. I mean, it gets into a lot of things that we have now. Again, like how you're saying, like the whole idea for this invention, the squid thing, was that it was for the government feds to use as a part of police work to be able to see what they're seeing, and to be able to use it as like for soldiers on the battlefield to be able to see what they're doing out there. And so now we have body cams on a lot of officers. Pretty much for the exact reason that you should have body cams. The entire plot of this film that hinges on, man, if only there were body cams on these guys to see what they were doing.
Another strange thing about this movie is the fact that it's maybe an hour into the movie before the main plot becomes involved in it.
Yes.
You're learning through Lenny about this world, and you're learning about Lenny, so it's a lot of character development before it even remotely gets into where the story is starting.
Yeah.
There's so many characters that it starts off with. Lenny goes home. This is probably half hour into the movie, and he puts on the apparatus that he needs to watch the squid videos. And he does the playback, and it's him with...
And that's when we first see Juliette Lewis.
Yeah, it's his girlfriend. And I thought she was going to be dead the first time I
She was
watched
dead
it.
when the movie started, yeah. She's on the box, but it looks like he's watching clips of, like, somebody that died on him.
And it's a really nice setting. It's along the beach, and they're rollerblading. I do like when you see him in the camera, too. He has a
Really
bandana wrapped around his head.
Yeah, the bandana, yeah.
And let's be honest, if anybody had that on their head, they wouldn't need to hide it in LA. I don't think anybody would pay attention to the fact that it was on their head. It would just be another weirdo.
Yeah, it does take quite some time to get into the... We start off with seeing Vincent D'Onofrio as one of the police chasing this woman, and then, yeah, it's a good 45 minutes before we ever figure out why they were chasing this woman.
And what it has to do with any of the other characters that we've seen
Yeah.
so far.
I like this movie a lot, but yeah, the story, which, again, written by James Cameron, he's not wildly known for being the best writer in the world, so, yeah, the story does take a little while to get into, and I would say I think the other big problem I had getting into, like, trying to figure out what the main plot of this film is, because it does take time. Like, for the first time I watched this, I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the plot? Is it just about, like, him stealing these memory things? I could tell, I figured it had to have something to do with that woman recorded something that she shouldn't have seen, but getting into what that is, and then it's very vague. We have that, the rapper Jericho 1 keeps popping up, but he's again, this is a big problem I have with this film, is he's supposed to be a very important part of this film, and his character is just nothing. All you know is that he's a rapper that's trying to fight police corruption, and at one point Angela Bassett says he was the most important black man in America. I'm like, well, you could have devoted a little bit more story time to him to, like, make me feel that that's true, because you showed him in a very cheap looking music video on a bar TV, and you're just like, yeah, can't you figure out that that's, like, the most important guy in the world?
There was a weird thing with the script where apparently the romance story was more so written by James Cameron, and the grit and all that shit was not written, but I guess suggested by Kathryn Bigelow. So it's really weird, because this is a movie that I would say definitely captures the male gaze quite literally. I wouldn't say it's like every person, every guy in the world, but it is totally hornball point of view that from every time that you go into somebody's memory, pretty much. Or like Rage, just the only real kind of racist character that you get is the very first memory, that playback that we're seeing. The guy, like, degrades the restaurant that he's robbing, because it starts with a robbery, which I think is actually kind of cool, because you think, oh, this movie must be about this crime, and this crime has nothing to do at all with anything in the plot. It's just getting you used to experiencing these memories. But when we get to the scene with Jericho 1, I know race is a part of it, but D'Onofrio, his line is something about, like, you're making our job harder with these riots and stuff. And he's not full on racist, which I think is what you would see in any body cam footage of somebody hurting or killing somebody. Why I was going into that was I felt like they didn't want to get heavily into the black culture of it because they aren't. They have Angela Bassett, and you only kind of get glimpses of her life. I think that she's a great character, but they don't really get into anything with her life outside of the fact that she raised a son without a dad and she's in love with Lenny. Like, there really is not. She's also a limo driver. Yeah, she's pretty much just her career in this. I do think that she's probably one of the better characters. Actually, this whole cast, even the small parts, I think are pretty fucking good in this. Maybe besides, what's her face?
Juliette Lewis.
Yeah, she's not a great actress. There's a scene where she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that you're doing this." And I'm like, maybe she's hard on drugs. I don't know. That could be a possibility with that character.
This movie, I don't know, I feel like it does want to have some twists, although it wasn't just the bad wig, but almost from the very beginning, it's probably just because of who they cast. I was like, oh, Tom Sizemore's the bad guy. Tom Sizemore's going to double cross him, because that's just Tom Sizemore in, like, any movie. He's always, like, the real weaselly, like, he's like, oh, I'm your best friend, until the very end of the movie when he's going to be like, actually, it was my huge plan to kill you from the start because I've never been your friend and I always hated you or something. Like, just as soon as his character popped up, I was like, oh, he's gonna double cross Lenny by the end of this movie. Like, I just know it.
You think it's a little bit of foreshadowing? The way that he pretends to be a cop arresting Lenny the first time that you see him?
I don't want to say they were that clever. I think they were just having a fun scene. I don't know. I do like this movie. I think overall it's good. And like you were saying, like how it feels like they, and maybe this is what led Kathryn Bigelow to do something like Detroit many years later, was that maybe she was more interested in the aspect of the racial part of why these riots happen, because it feels like she would want to get into that. And like you're saying, because it was written by James Cameron, if he wasn't as interested in those aspects or didn't think that would be an interesting part, because yeah, we're just shown that there's these riots going on all the time, and but it's never in particular brought up about, like, oh yeah, the cops are specifically targeting black neighborhoods or minority areas. We're never really shown that or told that. We're just shown that there's always riots going on. And then you have this guy, Jericho 1, who's a rapper, who says he wants to get all the gangs together, kind of in, like the Warriors. He wants to get all the gangs together to go against the police force. Getting towards the end, when they have Angela Bassett getting beat by the police, and it feels very much like it's supposed to be like, this is Rodney King happening. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't really made a big point of that being what this movie's about. If you wanted that to be the thing about showing that type of, I don't know if it's more like James Cameron's just more interested in the sci-fi aspect of it, and he doesn't want to bring almost that more realism-based approach of the '90s, being like, oh yeah, there's a lot of race riots. He's like, yeah, but let's get more into the technology. I just want to do that.
Obviously, Rodney King was the inspiration for this movie. Also, it was happening during the OJ trials. I read that when they were filming, they took a break during the OJ trials to try to not get people as riled up or whatever. But it is in the DNA of this movie. But when you're giving us an hour of learning who this character is, there's nothing wrong with it in throwing us little pieces of the plot. An hour into the movie, you're like, I don't really understand how this movie's going to end. Is this a day in the life of a dealer? They do add depth to the movie by giving us slivers of this person does more than we see, such as the whole relationship with Lenny. You discover that Lenny was a LAPD, and he is no longer. He has a run-in with the commissioner early on in the movie, and you think it's just because he's a well-known drug dealer or whatever. But it's
Yeah,
no,
they
it's
never
because
go into they never go into why he's not a police officer anymore, which I feel like just feels like some information that maybe at some point someone should mention. Like, did he accidentally kill somebody? Was it just because he started dealing the memory things? Like, it's never made clear. It's just, oh yeah, he got kicked off the police force. I'm just like, we're just gonna. That's all you're gonna say. You're not gonna say like why he got kicked off the police force.
and he trusts I can't remember his name. He trusts the commissioner like full-heartedly.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. I know he's a good guy.
He's like that guy could never. Yeah, I think he says like when he when he farts, it makes a whistle. He's so tight. He'll never be dirty. You can't. That guy's never gonna be a dirty cop.
He's well cast too because he definitely makes me think that he'll side with the cops no matter what, and that he's just gonna be this racist old white guy. When you have the scene where Lenny's like telling Angela Bassett's character Mace, make sure he gets this disc, make sure he gets this. So she goes into the men's bathroom, gives him this disc, and she thinks that she's betrayed because the cops grab her, take her outside, and she's I knew I should have trusted you. And it does. It feels like nothing's going to come of it. It really does feel like that's going to be the end of that. But the way they wrote it, it came back full circle. Like you said, when they were beating Angela Bassett via Rodney King with their batons and everything, chaos has erupted in the streets and everybody's fighting everybody. This dude that's wearing like a tuxedo because he's coming from a party just walks out of the crowd. I think that would have been the first guy like mugged and beat up by somebody. But he had the presence. He was able to make it through the crowd in that thing. Yeah, the memory is super cyberpunk, like you're saying. We do learn that they feel things because the very first video that we see and Lenny's experiencing it, a person dies. He doesn't deal with that shit. It's hard for him to go through. Which maybe, like you said, it ties into why he's not a cop anymore, but they cut it out or it doesn't go there. It doesn't tell us why.
Again, it's all very vague, and he just says he doesn't like doing those clips. I assume just because videos of people dying. He's like, oh no, snuff films are illegal. He doesn't want to deal with that. And yeah, I think he also says too, if the person that's wearing it dies, he said it like gives him a shock or something like that. Like it almost like electrocutes your brain when the guy dies. And he says that's. I think he also says like that's painful. Like no one would want that.
It's interesting because death is described the way the body shuts down. It's described as like an experience equivalent to like an orgasm or something. Like when you go, it's not always painful, I don't think, but maybe in this version of how the person died, the person fell to their death. Maybe that's what he felt. Like he felt the body getting crunched or something like that. Because I was reading about the making of this film. They actually had a guy jump between the buildings for a shot with no harness or anything. They like stripped a camera away like of all its weight to make it as like mobile as possible. I mean, I'm sure the fall and everything's staged and the long shot's fake. It looks good though. It doesn't really look like there's a break in the action for the first 5 minutes or so of the movie. But I was impressed that that jump was somewhat real and the fall, which we do have a fall at the end of this movie. And I think it's funny that
It looks way fake.
what is funny about the fall to me is when the character falls on the car, he falls 30 stories, it looks like, and he doesn't even dent the roof of the car. But when we watched Home Alone 2, Joe Pesci on that seesaw thing totally crushed that car.
For the time that this was made, all the first person stuff surprisingly looked really smooth, considering like today we'd use GoPros or just digitally recreate a lot of that stuff and just pretend it was happening, use some CGI. But
Hardcore Henry.
yeah, Hardcore Henry, that's
I never saw it, but I saw the trailer, and the trailer was basically what you're experiencing in this movie.
Yes, for a full like 2 hours, which apparently made a lot of people sick and was not a pleasant experience for a full 2 hour film to have that point of view. But yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, man, they were really good at doing this first person stuff for not having, digital cameras or anything lightweight, like probably having to actually use real film cameras.
They apparently worked really hard to make it feel realistic. When they did the part, when you finally see the main memory, the playback of what happened, why everybody is in a frenzy, you see the point of view of this prostitute, Iris. It kind of, at first, when it's just looking at the situation from afar, it feels like it could be a camera. But then when she starts stumbling around and shit, it is really well done that it doesn't feel like a hand is coming out of the side of like the camera. You ever see that where
Yeah.
they do the first person, you could tell the camera's massive and the hand looks so awkward reaching in the frame to like open a doorknob?
Like Halloween, like the hand doesn't
Yeah.
look like it's really coming from the kid specifically when it should be in the opening. Yeah.
The mask from Halloween, the mask in this was better when they put the masks on to do the robbery. It looks so much better than Halloween. I mean, they've had 20 years to work on it and perfect it, but
They were trying.
it does. It looks better. When you do get the fall at the end of the movie, though, when it's straight down, it looks bad. And when he falls on the car, it looks bad. But the fall from the building looks okay. It should have just been a reaction shot of oh shit. For as good and believable as some of the action is, and we've talked about this when we did Kathryn Bigelow, she does really good action. Some of it just didn't make sense. Very Looney Tunes ish. That's what I say when there's a pretty realistic world and then there's some crazy shit happening, which would be there's fight at the end of the movie between Ray Fiennes and Tom Sizemore after wrestling around and getting stabbed in the back. Tom Sizemore's hanging over the balcony. Well, he's hanging on to Ray Fiennes' tie that he brought up earlier in this movie. That's an expensive tie. And for some reason, it's not strangling the guy. It's like perfectly super tight with a lot of room for him to breathe and stuff. You'd think he'd be like choking to death from the guy that's
Also, I just feel like
strangling him. Yeah.
putting Tom Sizemore's like probably 280 pounds like just on your neck, like because he's not even like holding the tie still with his hands, like that's all just weight on his neck.
Yeah.
I don't think Ray Fiennes has that strong of a of a neck to hold up 280 pounds of Tom Sizemore hanging off the side of a building.
Yeah, it needed to be much quicker. That was like the one time where it was a little too melodramatic. Tom Sizemore, I can't even remember what he's saying, but he has a monologue as he's hanging off the side of this building.
Yeah, he's like something about like I'm gonna take you with me and all that. Yeah, he has. So that's a moment too. Yeah, where I feel like again they didn't establish stuff well enough that they had to have. Tom Sizemore goes on like a 5-minute long thing about his entire plan from the entire movie, and he has to go over everything. And it's like, and you have the original video in your house because that's where I put it there. And then they have to bring up, oh, and did you kill that guy Tick? He's like, yeah, I killed him. I'll pin that on you too. Like he has to go through every moment of the movie that he was involved in for the entire thing. It has to go over like every moment.
Probably don't even need all of that. I feel like there's a lot of information there where, like you said, they bring up Tick, the salesman who provides some of these experiences to Lenny to sell. He ends up dying, which they have a version of overdosing, which is just like, they call it being fried. I don't know what it is. It's just too high of a frequency of the memory output or something to make it somewhat dangerous, I guess. He walks in, he has to describe everything. Like you said, Chuck, you know it's fucking him. When you get to the first snuff part where he rapes and he kills the girl, in her eyeballs, you see that fucking wig. Like, you can tell that it is this guy. I do like the fact that he's colorblind, so they did some weird... It's kind of bluish. It's not, like, gray, but...
Yeah.
They're like, we know the killer's colorblind. We know the killer's colorblind, which that was, like, a flaw in... I think his name's Max. Tom Sizemore's plan is because I think Lenny could be like, I'm not fucking colorblind. You know, like... There's no color to this at all, so I clearly didn't do any of these crimes.
That's like another, like almost a moment where I wanted, like there should have been a moment somewhere in the film where Tom Sizemore says something about like his vision being bad or something like that. Like I don't know, put a hint in, because then again you have to have Ray Fiennes go, I didn't know you were colorblind, and
Mm-hmm.
Tom Sizemore's like, yeah, man, been colorblind a long time, and I'm like, that's something like should have just been like something that we just know about this guy is oh, he's got something up with his vision. Like, quit referencing it at the end where they
Exactly.
just want to like the 2.5 hours into the movie and they're like, we gotta just dump a lot of exposition to make
You
people
want your
understand what's
Zodiac
going on.
moment, Chuck. You want it to be a little bit more subtle before Tom Sizemore busts through the door and he's like, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, exactly.
You talk about the wig. I want you to bring it up on the podcast. But when they fight and he grabs Tom Sizemore's hair and it just comes off and he's like, oh shit, it's a wig. It's really fucking funny too. Going back to what we said in the very beginning of the episode, you can tell that it's a wig, but you're like, I don't know, maybe it's just a bad wig.
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe they just didn't have the budget for the good wig or something like that. Like,
And why does
but
every
yeah,
wig have to be like a long 4 foot length piece of hair? Nobody can have like a tiny ass wig on up their head.
yeah. Again, getting back into what the main plot is, I was very confused in the beginning as to who Michael Wincott's character is. Which
Yeah.
again, he's another one that's like, well, he's got to be the villain in this movie because he's the villain in every movie he plays because he's got like the gravelly voice that you're just like,
Yeah, you hear
yeah,
that
that guy's the
voice.
bad guy.
Well, it's funny because I think this and I think Nope, and
Yeah, the
he's not
Crow.
really the villain, but he does throw you off.
Yeah, Nope is like maybe one of the few times that he's not really a villainous character. He's just kind of like a dick or something like that. But yeah,
And this
he's
is
got that.
like 50-50. This movie, he makes villain choices, but he's not the overall villain of the movie.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's weird. His character, I just like couldn't understand what was going on. Where they make more of a conspiracy than I think it really is. Like when we first meet him, he's on the news talking about Jericho 1, and I didn't even realize that it was supposed to be that he was like his manager or something like
Yeah.
that. I couldn't. I just thought he was just a random guy. I actually thought he was a cop. That confused me at first too because Tom Sizemore says, "Oh, that's the guy that he lost faith to. That's the guy, you know." And I was like, "Oh, is it like because that guy's another cop and because he got kicked off the force and that's why he's at this murder scene or something like that?" And then when it gets further in and you're like, "Oh, okay, that was just that guy's manager." Why is he involved in the plot? And they keep trying to make it like this real deep, like he slaps Juliette Lewis around and is like, no one can know the truth of my deep, sinister plot. And I'm like, what's the plot? I don't get it. And then the whole thing just ends up being, oh yeah, he paid a hooker to wear one of those things and spy on this guy Jericho 1 because he thought he was going to leave his record label and go somewhere else. I was like, that was the plot. That was the deep conspiracy that
Well,
that
he
was
doesn't
going
want to
on,
lose his other clientele, which we never see.
which we never see anybody else. His other clientele must just be every band that plays
Yeah,
in his
all
club
those
and
grunge
Juliette
bands.
Lewis's
Yeah.
bands. Yeah, all the industrial metal bands that were very big
I
in
did see your new
the
haircut in this
90s.
movie. It's the bald guy that has a 2 inch spot on the side of his head of hair, and the
Yeah,
hair is 3 feet long.
just one big dreadlock.
I don't even think it's a dreadlock. It's just straight up fucking hair. And you see him like twice. It's just like, what is that hair? They did hire a rave promoter to bring people into this rave scene. And a lot of them were using real drugs. And they said they
I'm
were
sure
like
they were.
5 overdoses while they were filming the scene.
This was just a thing in the '90s between this and then like the other one I always think of is like Blade. They're
Mm,
like, man, you got to watch out for those raves. There's definitely crazy stuff going on there. Could be vampires.
could be blood. Yeah, could
Yeah,
have.
could be vampires. Could be guys hooking their brains up to stuff.
And their music is like that Rob Zombie thing. They love the
It's
Rob
just all
Zombie.
industrial. Yeah, it's all just industrial. It makes me think of like I'm surprised Power Man 5000's not on this soundtrack there.
They were real bands, and Julia
Yeah,
Lewis, she did sing.
yeah.
She actually sounded like people that I've seen perform before. I mean, she wasn't a great singer, but she was definitely the singer that would be in that place.
And again, like I keep going back to like how there's characters in this movie that I just don't understand or don't know what they're there for. Is the other one's that guy the guy with no legs? Again, feels like should be. I can't tell what his deal is. He's in that room and he's got like old 1940s films playing on like 6 different TVs, and I can't tell what he's doing. Like,
I
what's
felt
his
like he
deal?
was some sort of security guard because
He doesn't have legs.
I think he's like the guy in the chair.
Yeah, but he's not watching any security footage. He's watching 1940s
So I see.
films.
Okay, I don't remember seeing. You might be right. I don't remember seeing any security footage. I felt like maybe one of the TVs might have been the club or something because Lenny gets thrown out of the club by a former
Yeah,
Rams.
they had to very particularly remind you. The L.A. Rams, the football team. I'm like, did the Rams pay to get their name mentioned in this film like multiple times?
Yeah, he gets kicked out and he just breaks the window and jumps back inside and he's in
In a very
back in the rave
cartoonish
and
manner.
then he
Like he
meets that
literally gets
guy.
thrown down, like Jazzy Jeff getting thrown out of the house, and then it just like
Yeah,
climbs on a dumpster and breaks a window and climbs back inside.
very Flintstones-esque. But yeah, that's
Yes.
where he meets the guy. He's back inside and he meets that guy with no legs. So I'm like, he's an employee, I imagine, of the club. I don't know what he's doing.
Something, I guess.
Maybe he's the manager of the money or something. He's I don't know
I
idea what
don't
he's
know.
supposed to be doing.
It's just such a weird yeah. I'm just like, what's this guy's deal? And also like he's missing his legs, so then that was making me think, oh, again, is that related somehow to why Lenny got kicked off the force? Did like an accident happen and he lost his legs? And was it Lenny's fault? Like again,
Yes.
there's just multiple things that feel like there's just parts that maybe were missing, but they still had to cut this movie down because it's already 2.5 hours with what is in the movie. Like, is the original cut like 4 hours?
And you're
or
right. They
something?
could have cut more. They could have cut out Lenny being a cop. He could have trusted the commissioner for whatever reasons we
Some
don't
other
we don't
reason,
need
yeah.
to know. He could just say, "Trust me. I know that we could trust." You could think that he dealt the guy memories or something. I've seen his memories. We can trust him. I've seen enough body cam footage from that guy that he's a trustworthy person. But yeah, the runtime is weird the way that like some things become redundant. How you brought up that the playbacks were very pornographic. They're trying to do like a threesome from the point of view of one of the girls and trying to sell that. And then the customer, that's not even really important to the story at all. It's this weird thing about, yeah, you're an 18-year-old girl taking a shower. But we know people are into that weird porn shit. Then you get the guy with no legs running on the beach. Maybe the customer that came in should have been the no leg guy, and that should have been his experience that he wanted.
Yeah.
It is actually kind of interesting for his character to say, hey, I know what you really want is porn. And then when Angela Bassett's like, you sell porn, he's like, I do not sell porn.
Yeah.
I'm
I
a
like
high
the,
class salesperson. He's a good salesperson. Maybe he should have been like a shoe salesman or used car salesman that just made more money off of selling these memories to people or
Yeah.
something.
They keep like making like a funny joke about, well, he's always saying like how all of his stuff's expensive even though it's not, and he's like, he doesn't. There's 3 times with his watch he gives that guy. He's like, come on, man, I'll give you a check, and the guy's like, yeah, right. He's like, oh, I'll get you the cash. Here, have my Rolex for collateral, and then the guy drives off with his thing. And then he tries to bribe the bodyguard from the Rams, and he's like, I got a Rolex, and the guy just looks at it and goes, that's nice, I got a real one. Then he tries it with like the guys that are gonna beat him up. He's like, let's make a deal, guys. Come on, you want my Rolex? And that guy just goes, is this impact resistant? He's like, probably. Just right before he punches him in the face.
Yeah, and like the tie thing that is obviously because Tom Sizemore's gonna hang off this tie at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
This tie is
They
worth
talk
more
about
than your
those
whole
stupid ties.
yeah, this tie is worth more than your whole outfit. And he laughs and says like, well, that's not saying much. I'm dressed like shit right now. The shittiest looking character in this thing.
Yeah, the movie's got good moments.
They
I
could
think-
cut
yeah,
30 minutes out, whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, they could easily cut a lot of things. I'd even be fine. I don't know. It's weird how like the main plot and the side plot come together in a way that it becomes hard to figure out where you cut some of that stuff out, because it's like part of me feels like, oh, just cut out all the Jericho 1 stuff with like Vincent D'Onofrio and his partner, but then if you cut any of that out, then the rest of the movie's like, oh well, then why is the Michael Wincott's character so crazy and wants to get people murdered and stuff. And you can't just cut him out. You think like, oh well, he's a dumb character. Like, why do you really need him? Just have it all be about Vincent D'Onofrio's character. But then it's, well, why is there the recording? Oh, the recording's because of Michael Wincott's character. Like they like intertwine the stories too much to cut out certain things. Like, yeah, you can only cut out like some more of this like small character development stuff. But
They need to figure out a way to, as a detective story, I think it's fine to have everything connect the way that it does, but they need to find a way to trim it out where you can give us that information, or we get that information without too much time. I mean, actually, the story itself, the detective story, maybe an hour and a half. The rest of it is character development for Lenny, so they're not really diving full hard into this dark plot.
yeah, I'd almost want this to be more of a, like, yeah, cut out a lot of this extra useless stuff, and just make it almost more straight up like neo noir. Like, you
It
can keep
was
the
a neo
technology
noir. It
stuff.
really
I know
was.
it is, but it feels like there's still too much. It's like again, don't make this guy
Like every good neo
a
noir, there's a little bit too much.
there's a little bit too much, yeah. But like, yeah, cut out some of the stuff with like you were saying, like Lenny doesn't even need to be a cop. That doesn't even need to be a plot point. But yeah, there are a lot of noir moments of, a guy just getting sucked into, a murder plot that really has nothing to do with him at the very beginning, but because he just keeps getting pushed into it. And obviously Juliette Lewis is the femme fatale character that he's constantly trying to go after.
Yeah, he's in love with her, but she is very obviously doesn't give a fuck about him. And the typical femme fatale would use that to her advantage, and she really doesn't. I can't think of a moment in this movie where she is taking advantage of him that way.
Not really. She's a weird femme fatale because for most of the movie she actually genuinely does seem like she's trying to protect him and get him out of this scenario. Like, she keeps trying to tell him, I don't love you anymore. Stop following me around. You're gonna get hurt if you keep coming around here. And he just won't listen to it and just keeps coming around. And I mean, even in the end, she saves him from Tom Sizemore shooting him. So yeah, it's a weird femme fatale. Like, she doesn't play it exactly, but she's definitely supposed to be that character.
Also, the video footage, the playback footage, gets around so fucking fast. Because when he watches his snuff film of Iris, and he's like, I just saw Iris. I just saw her. She was ranting like a lunatic. I have to get over to this hotel. And they're bringing the body out, and it's very comical where her face is not covered for some reason when she's outside. Like, that's where the detective decides to cover her up. But the same scenario happens again at the end of the movie, and he rushes to save Faith. And I actually do think that's really good when he busts in and he pulls off the bed sheet, and it's Wincott. It's the producer, Philo Gant or whatever. I think that's a good like little twist, but it also probably doesn't need much more than Tom Sizemore busting in and trying to kill him. Like, I don't think he needed a monologue. Yeah, the colorblind thing should have came in a different place. But overall, I don't think that it is a bad film for the story that it's telling. It just some parts are goofy. Even the relationship with Angela Bassett, where he calls her when his car gets towed, and then you can't exactly tell what the hell is going on between these two people or what her job is, because you think that she's like some corrupt person, but she's literally
she was just a cop. I thought she was another cop, and that's how he knew her.
Yeah, she picks that guy up. He speaks terrible Japanese. I mean, phonetically, Ray Fiennes is correct with it, but it is so bad that I'm sure that actor was like, just say this. And he's like, cool, I said some Japanese. Yeah, I had no idea what the hell that guy was. And there's some scenes, too, where when he's watching the Iris video for the first time, he's in the back of the car, or the back of the limo while Angela Bassett's driving. And she already has a problem with this technology. She knows what he's fucking doing back there. I don't know why she doesn't have more of a problem with it.
Oh, yeah, because I feel like she can see him. There's shots very clearly showing that, like, she can see him in the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
And he's got that thing on his head, and she's just like, yeah, what are you doing back there? And I'm like, you can tell what he's doing back there. You can see it on his head. He's using that machine.
I think it's weird because he can still talk to her. There's a line where he's like, close your eyes or you'll see double. But we also know that he can hear the video and hear what's actually happening around him because he was still able to answer her.
He's hearing double.
He's hearing double, which you would think would take you out of the immersive experience of having legs on the beach or whatever. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't thought this whole technology thing through. They're still working on it.
When you say they haven't thought this whole technology thing through, that's how I'm feeling in present time with the Apple Vision Pro and all the videos of, like, they're just hilarious. Like, that guy in his Tesla.
Testing it in real life.
This thing hasn't even been out for 10 hours, and the guy's driving his Tesla with it on his face.
There was a guy, I saw a video of, someone recorded it, and he went to like a coffee shop, and the entire time he walks in, it almost looks like a parody, but it's 100% real. Like the guy's got this real huge jacket on, and he's wearing the Pro, and then he's got a wire, and it's running into his jacket, because I'm assuming it's running into wherever it needs to plug into like a power supply somewhere. So he looks like he's probably wearing a huge battery under his jacket. And I feel like this guy's trying to make this not look weird, and everybody in the coffee shop's just staring at him because it's the most bizarre looking thing imaginable. And then he's like sitting at his table drinking his coffee, and he had a second camera set up so it like shows what other people's perspective of it is, and it just looks so dumb because he's just like to anyone in the store, he's just waving his hands in the air, and he's just like, it's like, I'm like, I could never do that. I could never go to a place, wear this stupid thing on my face, and then like just wave your hands around, like, because you're trying to be like, it's making me think of Tom Cruise in Minority Report, like swiping the screens real fast.
Yeah.
We're still working on it. We're still working on that technology. Maybe
years ago they tried to do the Google glasses, which looked like glasses with too much shit on them, and I don't know, they fell through.
Those were still stupid too, because there was a guy the person that stocked our vending machines at work, he had those, and I don't know if they were provided by his company or if he actually bought them. I certainly hope this guy didn't spend his own money on them, but he like used them to keep track of his inventory while he was stocking the vending machines. But again, it was like so dumb because he every time he'd just be like, Lay's 10, and he's just standing there like while people are eating their lunch, and it's just like Fritos 3, and I'm like, if you have to do that, then the thing's stupid, and it's not. It's like, I don't know that it's.
It would be funnier too if it's like Lay's. No, I said Lay's.
yeah, because it doesn't pick up. Yeah. I deal with that with all my smart products half the time, where I'm like, play this, and then it's playing something complete. I'm like, that's not remotely what I said.
Yeah, you say play this song, and like polka music starts playing.
Yeah.
What the hell is that? I didn't ask for this. Everyone looks at you. Chuck, we know that you regularly play polka music.
Yeah. I swear, this is the first time I've ever listened to this.
I've never listened to polka before. Trust me, believe me. We need to police the police aspect. It's still very present. It's never going to go away. It's weird how the VR aspect of it is kind of reality. We've already can experience shit in the VR world, or they've shot movies like this already where you can put on the headset and experience a first-person movie. So it's not far off from, like, I mean, I'm sure it's going to kill the fucking guy, but Elon Musk is already, like, putting computer chips in people's heads, so it's only a matter of time before we can plug in and actually feel things, too, I'm sure. And then, hey, yeah, you don't have to go out of your house and risk your life for whatever reason. Although they were pretty violent in the beginning of this movie where they, like, beating up fucking Santa Claus or some shit. And then they're all pretty content during New Year's Eve celebration. I mean, yeah, they're standing on cop cars and stuff, but they're really not doing anything too crazy. They're not, like, hurting people or stabbing people. There's also 5 billion people in LA. There's, like, when they show that shot from the sky of the crowd, and it's, like, shoulder-to-shoulder people through several blocks. I'm on the East Coast, so I don't even know what LA sees, where their ball drop is, if they have a ball drop. but they're just watching a kind of a small TV on one corner of a street in downtown Los Angeles, and I have no idea, like, if there's that many people there, like, I don't know where any of the confetti, I don't know where anything's coming from.
Like the when they're playing like those radio calls at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And there's the person bringing up, well, the world's gonna end at midnight, and he's just like, oh, okay. I mean, what is that, midnight our time, midnight East Coast time? I mean, what time zone is God living in that I should be prepared for the rapture to happen? And that woman's like, I'm praying for your soul.
Hey, they predicted Y2K too.
Yeah, they really did. Did they predict it, or was that like the? Was this the start of it? Like somebody somewhere was watching Strange Days and was like, ah, shit, they're right. The world is going to end at the end of 1999. How come we're not talking about this?
Yeah, we had, in the year 2000, there was a lot of, like, cultist conspiracy things about the world ending. But then there was a very realistic, scientifical side where people said, hey, we didn't program, this is the thing, we didn't program these computers to have a 2. So all these computers that run everything, they're going to think that it's like 1,000 years ago, and the world's just going to shut down. Dams are going to open up and flood things, and it's just going to be a disaster.
Can't handle anything, and you'll lose all your money.
Everything. Yeah, there was Super Bowl ads of Y2K where the person lost all their money, and then when it came back on, like, they take a picture of it, because the picture is going to prove that that's how much money they had. But then when it comes back on, they're like a billionaire. So they like retake the picture. Like, I was definitely a billionaire before this happened.
Yeah.
But then we had the whole Mayan calendar thing where they're like, the Mayan calendar ends in 2012. And then they made a really fucking stupid 2012 movie. I think they wrote it the year before and made it. And it's like they rushed that thing through. And now I don't think there are any end of times dates. I think we're through. Well, for now, there will be another one that pops up from some crazy person.
Yeah.
Because I think they even said the Mayan calendar. They're like, it ended in 2012 because that's just naturally, like, we ran out of space to keep doing the calendar. It was like a perfect circle where we want aesthetically pleasing calendars, so we just had to end it there. This movie, I discovered it when we were doing all the Kathryn Bigelow movies. It quickly rose to the top of my favorites. Probably not more so than her best ones. I still think Hurt Locker's her best movie. I probably like Point Break and Near Dark more, but I'd put this fourth and probably everything else underneath of it. Even like Zero Dark 30, K-19, and Detroit. They're really long-winded. I don't understand why Kathryn Bigelow is like, this movie's got to be super fucking long.
Yeah.
Just shorten the fucking thing. Like we said, we just saw Killers of the Flower Moon. We could watch a 3.5-hour movie. But when you're only following a few people around, it's not based on true events. Even true events get cut down. They're like, fuck it. We're just going to follow the perspective of this guy. We can't show you everything. You're going to have to piece this shit together.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a noticeable thing. Like when you're listing off the movies that you put above this, they're all movies that I think are all just around 2 hours or less. They're all very, like, Near Dark, Point Break, and Hurt Locker are all like very compact. Like the story, there's nothing extra there, any extra story that you feel needs to be cut. But I feel like I could say that with any of those other movies, like Zero Dark 30, Detroit, even this. As much as I like them, there's definitely parts that I'm like, you do not need that. Let's cut that back a little bit.
Yeah, and I wonder what they lost. We know there was something cut from this movie. Also, it's very weird that this is a movie that I don't remember hearing about ever. I don't remember trailers for it. I don't remember seeing it at the video store. I don't remember anything about it. When I was doing the Kathryn Bigelow binge, it popped up, and it was actually hard to find. So if you want to watch it, it's on Max now.
It's on Max.
Watch it right now before they get rid of it. But maybe it's refreshing because of that aspect that you've never heard of it. It does. It has a pretty big cast. Ray Fiennes got in it because of Schindler's List. They spared no expense, it seems. Yeah, like you said, Vincent D'Onofrio, and I can't remember that other guy. He's in fucking everything, too, the other cop.
Yeah.
I always think he's like Gary Cole for a second, and it's not Gary Cole. He's a kind of a doppelganger. Like he's a Dylan McDermott and Dermot Mulrooney to me. He's like they look like the same guy to me. But yeah, it's not hard to seek out. Find it now. Check it out now. I think generally people will like it. When we were doing that month, I was almost like, should I have chosen this movie? Because this is a movie that at least a lot of people haven't seen. Have you seen this before? Did you watch it for the first time now?
Yeah. I've owned it since we worked at Hollywood Video, because that's the...
You did buy it at Hollywood Video.
Copy of I have from Hollywood Video.
Holy shit. I don't even remember it. Is it the picture of the three faces?
Yes. Yep.
The fuck don't I remember?
I know, and I think I just bought it because it was, I probably had seen, I mean, because at that point I'd probably seen Point Break, Hurt Locker was around that time, so I was probably, I probably looked at it and was like, oh, that's by that Kathryn Bigelow, I should buy that, and then just never watched it.
I think it's interesting that you know and recognize the director. A lot of people don't. And she doesn't slap her name on a bunch of shit. Still, like, there's a couple movies that ended and it's not directed by Kathryn Bigelow. It just comes up. Here's the UPM and here's the first assistant director. It just doesn't give a shit to tell you who the director is. It's like, we don't care. It's just a movie. I'm a modest director. She should have a new movie. She's doing a sci-fi movie, Aurora. I bought the book. I gotta read the book, but I feel like by this point it should be coming out this year. So we'll finally get more Kathryn Bigelow for, like, Detroit was 2017 or something? I feel right?
Yeah.
That's too long, Kathryn. You need to make more movies. You're better than James Cameron anyways. I like James Cameron, but, like, there's no contest. Hurt Locker is a million times better than Avatar. They can't fight that. I think the most impressive thing about not hearing about this movie until just a few years ago is the cast. Really. It's like an impressive cast when you start watching this movie where you're just like, oh yeah, that, oh yeah, that. Besides Julia Lewis. Well, nothing against her. She's just, every time that she shows up in a movie, she's just, I don't know, not my thing. But I can believe that Ralph Fiennes absolutely is infatuated with her. And I have to suspend my disbelief for that more than I do the technology that's, the sci-fi technology that's in this movie. Oh no, I can't believe you're doing this. But yeah, we got one more movie for Cyberpunk coming next week. Chuck's pick, and then we'll shift into a new genre. And we'll have our usual Academy Awards episode in the middle of that. But the genres continue. Thanks for listening, everybody.
We are Cinema d'Amore. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with news and information on upcoming episodes. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, Alexa, or iHeartRadio. It would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to our podcast on your platform of choice. We also appreciate feedback, so rate us, review us, and let us know what you think. And above all else, thank you for listening.